I'm not a fan of upfront conclusions, but if there was one thing that I would say that would help you succeed in A-level chemistry, it would definitely have to be understanding. You ever wonder, no matter how hard you try to study chemistry, you just cannot get the mark that you want, and there's a reason behind that. A few days ago, I was talking to a friend who's now in university, but he did extremely well in A-levels, and I was just telling him, that I just cannot manage to get the few marks in application-based questions. So if you don't know what application-based questions are, let me summarize it for you. In edX or A-level chemistry, there's something called application-based questions, which are questions that they ask usually in the end of the question. So for example, there's question 21, then you're going to have 21A, 21B, 21C, but the last part, so let's say 21D, is going to be something that is usually out of syllabus or something that is very unlikely to show up in the exam, and that is where a lot of students lose their marks and where I did as well. The information that these questions want from you is not usually in the textbook nor in the syllabus, and it's just like you have to apply your previous knowledge or whatever it may be, and you somehow have to get the answers. And these are questions that I struggle with a lot, and a lot of people struggle with as well. I remember back when I was doing AS level and I did unit 2, there was a question in my paper where they asked, what could this waxy solid be? I remember just looking at it and saying, what the is that? Anyways, while I was talking to him, he gave me a couple of tips that I'm going to reiterate to you as well, because those tips completely transformed the way I see chemistry, and I'm 100% sure if you apply these tips to yourself as well, you're going to see such a big improvement that you're going to come back and thank me in the comments. The first thing that he told me was that fix your mindset. He told me that not to see chemistry as a burden, because no matter what you do in life, it doesn't have to be chemistry, it can be anything, maths, physics, whatever you're doing in life. If you see it as a burden or something that you do not want to do, then you're automatically not going to be good at it, because you've already built up the mindset that I'm not good at it, I don't like this thing, so why even bother trying in the first place? If you force yourself to do something without at least even trying to enjoy it, then you're not going to be good at it, and that's just a simple, harsh reality. This was the case for me. Back in AS level, so year 12, I absolutely despised chemistry, and I was so bad at it because I just I looked at this content, I was like, this is not for me, I cannot do this. But this year, surprisingly, I'm actually quite enjoying it, and it is very easy for me now. Why? Because I've applied the tips that he gave me, and I'm starting to quite enjoy chemistry. But what I can say is that back in year 12, when I forced myself to study it, I was not enjoying it at all. I was actually seeing it as a burden, and every time I had to study chemistry, I would be like, oh god, I do not want to do this. But this year, I'm willingly trying to study chemistry, and it's actually been quite fun. So the next time you go and sit down to study chemistry, tell yourself, oh, it's not that hard, it's just my mindset and I need to change it, and eventually you're going to see yourself starting to like chemistry again. So it's all in your head, and you just need to fix that. Now the second thing that he told me, which is by far the most important thing that you should know, is that understanding in detail. This is something that I only realized this year, because last year what I would do is I would read the textbook or my short notes, and I would go and try to solve past paper questions without even doing anything, and that made it extremely hard for me, and I will tell you why. For example, we've learned that if we add tolerance reagent to an aldehyde, we get a silver mirror. Now we all know that, but very few of us know why that actually happens. Now the silver mirror forms because the tolerance reagent turns silver ions into solid silver when it reacts with the aldehyde. The reason this test is only for an aldehyde is because ketones are not as easily oxidized as aldehydes are. Now it's very easy to just learn, oh, tolerance reagent is a positive test for an aldehyde. But if, for example, when you're doing the exam and they ask something like, why is a silver mirror formed, or why do ketones not react with tolerance reagent, how will you answer that? It's because you didn't even go into depth on whatever they were asking. All you learned was, oh, tolerance reagent with an aldehyde, silver mirror. You did not bother learning anything else, and that could lose you a lot of valuable marks. The best thing to do in chemistry is to continuously ask questions. What happens if I do this? What if I did this? What if I did this? And eventually you're going to start enjoying chemistry more, because everything's going to start to click. There's a eureka moment where you're going to be like, oh, this is why it happens, and that is going to be, that's what's going to make chemistry so much more enjoyable for you. Essentially, the more questions you ask, the more easier the topic becomes for you, because you're going to go more in depth and you're going to start understanding why everything happens. But you may be thinking, how can we actually level up our understanding of the topic? So here are a couple of methods that I used and my friend told me that helped me level up my understanding when it comes to chemistry. Question why changes happen and watch videos on it. Watching videos is the more essential part of this, point. Is basically, so for example, if we take enthalpy change of neutralization or combustion, whatever it is, in the textbook there's only a simple diagram explaining it, but sometimes a diagram does not suffice. You need something more than a diagram. In those cases, what I would do, I would go into YouTube and I would search up that experiment, and I would actually watch someone do that experiment. And that made it so much clearer for me to understand things, because I could see, oh, this is what he does. And then I would refer back to my textbook and see the explanation. And it all just started making sense. And, it was sort of a eureka moment, as I said before, that, oh, this is why it happens and this is how you do it. So watch videos on it, because it will make things so much more clear for you. The next thing I would do is make short notes with past papers. So now you may be a bit confused on what this means. As I said before, they like to ask application-based questions, and these questions are not actually mentioned in the textbook. So what I would do is every time a certain question came up and I did not know it and it wasn't in the syllabus, I would just write it down somewhere, like in my notes, and then I would just refer to it. So I would make sure that if they were to ask that same question again, I would not forget it. I would just explore what the content was of that question. The third one is what I did. I would analyze the marking scheme thoroughly after every time I did a past paper. Now, the reason for this is because the mark scheme is kind of your key to, success, whatever you want to say. Basically, I would attempt the paper and then I would go into detail with the marking scheme. So I would see like what I did well, what could I have done better, what keywords I missed out on, what did I include, what I did good. Basically every single thing. I would end up by hearting the marking scheme. And the reason this is so useful is because you see an insight to what the examiner is going to see when he marks your paper. So you don't have to be biased. A lot of people do is what they say is like, oh, I was close enough, I'll get the mark in the board exam. Don't do that. Be very, very strict with yourself, because the examiner might or might not give you the marks. So you have to be very strict with yourself in case and see what is the worst possible mark that you can get. So be very strict with your marking and do it thoroughly. Do not, skip on, oh, I'll get it next time or whatever it is. Just cut the mark and move on. And last but not least, snap out of the mindset that it's hard and start enjoying it. One way I started enjoying chemistry is by watching Nile Red. So if you do not know who Nile Red is, he's a YouTuber and he makes videos on chemistry. But not just, the plain boring chemistry that you might think. He does stuff like turning cotton into cotton candy or something like that, making blue gold or something like that. He makes interesting videos, and me watching those videos actually developed my understanding of chemistry. And I would, he would mention something in his videos and I would see it in my textbook and I would be like, oh, I remember it from his videos. His videos are extremely entertaining, so if you want to go ahead and check them out, I'll leave them in the description below. But basically, watching his videos actually helped me a lot when it comes to chemistry, because I started enjoying it. I was like, chemistry does not have to be boring, because his videos are so fun. But when you look at your textbook, obviously it becomes boring. Another thing is that when you start reading a book, it becomes boring when you're not experimenting or when you're not watching videos on it. Reading words can be boring at times, and that is why you develop a sort of hate relationship with chemistry, because all you're doing is reading a textbook. But that's very wrong. You should be watching videos, you should be doing experiments, you should be enjoying yourself when you're doing chemistry. And that is one way you can become better at chemistry, is by actually enjoying it. I fully believe if you really, really, really try in chemistry, it is not that hard at all. It becomes so much easier once you start working hard and actually enjoying it. The whole thing about chemistry is developing your understanding of the subject. You can memorize something, but that doesn't necessarily mean you understand it. You can just remember, as I said before with the tolerance reagent example, is that you can just memorize it, but you won't understand it. So if in the exam, or even in the past paper, if they ask something different, you're going to be so confused and be like, what the hell are they asking? But the reality is, if you really looked into it in depth, you would have understood it in the first place. So it all comes down to how you understand the topic. I hope this video helped you. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and leave them in the comment section below. I do reply to all of them. You can also like the video down below if you enjoyed it. And last but not least, you can subscribe to the channel here. And if you want to find out why A-levels are so hard, you can click on the video over here. I'll see you with another video very, very soon. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.